Picture this. You're in the heart of Spain. It's the 15th century, and the Spanish Inquisition is in full swing. But amidst the religious fervor and the, let's say, enthusiastic questioning techniques, there's something else that's got everyone talking. And no, it's not the latest torture device or the newest heresy, it's hygiene. Yes, you heard that right. In a time when bathing was considered a luxury and brushing your teeth was a foreign concept, the Spanish Inquisition brought about some peculiar trends in cleanliness. So buckle up, because things are about to get squeaky clean. Or not. The scent of sanctity. Now, when you think of the Spanish Inquisition, cleanliness probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. You're more likely picturing stern inquisitors, dark dungeons, and a whole lot of uncomfortable-looking torture devices. But believe it or not, hygiene played a surprisingly significant role during this period. And it all started with a little thing called the scent of sanctity. You see, back in the day, people believed that saints didn't stink. No matter how much they sweated or how long they went without a bath, they always smelled divine. Literally. They were said to give off a heavenly aroma, a sort of holy BO, if you will. This was known as the odor of sanctity, and it was considered a surefire sign of holiness. So if you wanted to prove your piety during the Spanish Inquisition, you had better smell like a bed of roses, or at least not like a pile of manure. But here's where things get interesting. While the saints supposedly smelled like a heavenly bouquet, heretics, on the other hand, were believed to reek of evil. That's right, if you were accused of heresy, people expected you to smell like you'd just crawled out of a sulfur pit. And this wasn't just a metaphorical stench. Inquisitors would actually sniff out suspects, using their noses to determine guilt or innocence. Talk about a high-stakes sniff test. Now you might be thinking, well, that's easy. Just take a bath and you're good to go. But remember, this was the 15th century. Bathing wasn't exactly a daily ritual. In fact, it was often seen as a health risk. People believed that bathing opened up the pores, allowing diseases to sneak in. So, while you didn't want to smell like a heretic, you also didn't want to risk catching the plague. It was quite the conundrum. But don't worry, the people of the Spanish Inquisition had a solution, and it was as bizarre as you might expect. Instead of bathing, they turned to a range of strange hygiene practices to keep the stench of heresy at bay. And these weren't your typical wash your face, brush your teeth kind of routines. Oh no, they were far more peculiar. From holy water, cologne, to sanctified soap, the hygiene trends of the Spanish Inquisition were as fascinating as they were bizarre, and they're about to get even weirder. So, hold on to your noses, because we're diving into the strange world of Inquisition hygiene. And trust me, it's going to be a wild ride. The holy water cologne. So, you're a 15th century Spaniard, you're trying to avoid the plague, and you don't want to smell like a heretic. What do? Well, you could start by splashing on some holy water cologne. Yes, you heard that right. Holy water wasn't just for baptisms and blessings, it was also a key ingredient in the fight against the stench of heresy. Now, this wasn't your average eau de toilette. This was water that had been blessed by a priest, making it a powerful tool in the battle against evil and body odor. People would splash it on their bodies, sprinkle it around their homes, and even use it to wash their clothes. The idea was that the holy water would not only mask any unpleasant smells, but also protect the wearer from the forces of evil. After all, if you smelled like sanctity, surely the devil would keep his distance. But holy water wasn't the only thing people were splashing on. They also turned to a range of scented oils and perfumes, many of which were made from sacred herbs and flowers. These fragrances were believed to have protective properties, warding off both physical diseases and spiritual threats. So, not only could you smell like a saint, but you could also keep yourself safe from harm. It was a win-win situation. While these scented solutions might have helped mask the smell of heresy, they didn't do much for personal cleanliness. Remember, bathing was still seen as a health risk, so people were walking around covered in a mix of sweat, dirt, and holy water cologne. It was a strange time for hygiene, to say the least. But things were about to get even stranger. Because while holy water and perfumes were all well and good, nothing could beat the next trend in Inquisition hygiene, the sanctified soap. And trust me, this is one cleaning product you won't find on your supermarket shelves. So brace yourself, because things are about to get a whole lot soapier. Sanctified soap, the divine dirt buster. Now, when you think of soap, you probably think of a simple bar or a bottle of liquid that helps you get rid of dirt and grime. But during the Spanish Inquisition, soap was more than just a cleaning product. It was a divine dirt buster, a sanctified solution to the problem of heretical body odor, and it came with its own set of peculiar practices. You see, soap during the Spanish Inquisition wasn't like the soap we know today. It wasn't mass-produced in factories or sold in neatly packaged bars. Instead, it was often homemade, crafted from a mix of animal fats, plant oils, and lye. But what set this soap apart wasn't its ingredients. It was the way it was used. Instead of lathering up in a bath or a shower, people would apply the soap directly to their skin, rubbing it in to create a sort of soapy paste. They would then scrape off the soap, along with any dirt and grime, using a special tool known as a striggle. It was a process that was as time-consuming as it was thorough. But it wasn't the scraping that made this practice so peculiar. It was the sanctification. Before the soap was used, it would be blessed by a priest, turning it into a sort of holy cleanser. This sanctified soap was believed to have special powers, capable of washing away not just physical dirt, but spiritual impurities as well. It was a way for people to cleanse their bodies and their souls, all in one go. And in a time of religious fervor and fear of heresy, this divine dirt buster was a hot commodity. But while the sanctified soap might have helped people feel cleaner and more pious, it didn't solve the problem of body odor. So, while you might have been free of dirt and sin, you were probably still a bit on the smelly side. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had a solution for that too. And it involved a whole lot of incense. So get ready, because things are about to get smoky. Incense. The heavenly deodorant. If you've ever been to a religious ceremony, you're probably familiar with the smell of incense. It's a scent that's often associated with spirituality and worship. But during the Spanish Inquisition, incense was more than just a part of religious rituals. It was also a key player in the battle against body odor. Now, incense has been used for thousands of years in various cultures and religions. It's often burned during ceremonies and rituals, with the smoke believed to carry prayers up to the heavens. But in the Spanish Inquisition, incense had an additional purpose. It was used as a sort of heavenly deodorant, a way to mask the smell of unwashed bodies and create an aura of sanctity. People would burn incense in their homes, filling the air with its fragrant smoke. They would also carry small pouches of incense with them, using the scent to mask any unpleasant odors. Some would even sprinkle incense on their clothes or their beds, turning themselves into walking potpourri. This wasn't just any incense. This was religious incense, often blessed by a priest and made from sacred herbs and resins. Burning this incense was seen as a form of purification, a way to cleanse the air of evil spirits and heretical stenches. It was a practice that was as spiritual as it was practical, blending the lines between hygiene and holiness. While the incense might have made people smell heavenly, it didn't do much for their personal cleanliness. So, while you might have smelled like a saint, you were probably still covered in a layer of dirt and grime. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had one more trick up its sleeve, and it involved a whole lot of herbs. So, get ready, because we're about to dive into the world of herbal hygiene. And trust me, it's going to be a wild ride. Herbal hygiene, the botanical bath. In a world where bathing was seen as a health risk and soap was used without water, people had to get creative with their hygiene practices. And one of the ways they did this was through the use of herbs. But these weren't just any herbs. These were holy herbs, plants that were believed to have special powers of purification and protection. And they were used in some pretty peculiar ways. Now, when you think of using herbs for hygiene, you might think of herbal soaps or shampoos. But during the Spanish Inquisition, herbs were used in a much more direct way. People would rub them on their skin, use them to clean their teeth, and even chew on them to freshen their breath. It was a sort of botanical bath, a way to cleanse the body without water. But these weren't just any herbs. These were holy herbs, plants that were often associated with saints or religious stories. For example, rosemary was believed to have been blessed by the Virgin Mary, while sage was associated with longevity and wisdom. Using these herbs was seen as a way to imbue the body with their holy properties, providing protection against evil spirits and disease. Herbs weren't just used for personal hygiene, they were also used to cleanse the home. People would sprinkle them around their houses, burn them as incense, and even use them to make holy brooms. These brooms were used to sweep away not just physical dirt, but spiritual impurities as well. It was a practice that was as symbolic as it was practical, blending the lines between cleanliness and piety. While these herbal practices might have made people feel cleaner and more pious, they didn't solve the problem of body odor. So, while you might have smelled like a herb garden, you were probably still a bit on the smelly side. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had a solution for that too. And it involved a whole lot of perfume. So, get ready, because things are about to get fragrant. Perfume. The scent of piety. In a time when bathing was a luxury and body odor was a sign of heresy, perfume was more than just a pleasant scent. It was a symbol of piety, a way to mask the smell of the physical world and align oneself with the divine. But this wasn't your average perfume. This was religious perfume, often made from sacred ingredients and blessed by a priest. And it was used in some pretty peculiar ways. Now, perfume has been used for thousands of years in various cultures and religions. It's often associated with luxury and sensuality, with the rich and powerful using it to set themselves apart. But during the Spanish Inquisition, perfume had a different purpose. It was used as a form of spiritual protection, a way to ward off evil spirits and the stench of heresy. People would douse themselves in perfume, using it to mask their body odor and create an aura of sanctity. They would also sprinkle it around their homes, using the scent to cleanse the air and ward off evil. Some would even use it as a form of medicine, believing that the sacred scents could cure diseases and heal wounds. This wasn't a regular perfume. This was religious perfume, often made from sacred herbs and resins. Ingredients like frankincense, myrrh, and spikenard were popular choices, their scents believed to be pleasing to the divine. Using these perfumes was seen as a form of worship, a way to align oneself with the divine and ward off the forces of evil. These perfumes might have made people smell heavenly. They didn't do much for their personal cleanliness. So while you might have smelled like a saint, you were probably still covered in a layer of dirt and grime. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had one more trick up its sleeve, and it involved a whole lot of fire. So get ready, because things are about to heat up. Fire, the ultimate purifier. In a world where body odor could be a sign of heresy and bathing was seen as a health risk, people had to get creative with their hygiene practices. And one of the most extreme methods they turned to was fire. Yes, you heard that right. Fire. But before you start picturing people setting themselves alight in the name of cleanliness, let's clarify a few things. Now, when we say fire, we're not talking about people literally burning themselves. That would be, well, fatal. Instead, we're talking about a process known as smudging. This involved burning certain herbs or resins and using the smoke to cleanse the body and the surrounding air. It was a practice that was as spiritual as it was practical, with the fire symbolizing purification and transformation. This was holy fire, often lit using sacred woods or coals. The smoke from this fire was believed to carry prayers up to the heavens, while also driving away evil spirits and disease. It was a powerful tool in the battle against heresy and body odor, a way to cleanse the body and the soul in one fell swoop. But fire wasn't just used for personal hygiene. It was also used to cleanse the home. People would carry the holy fire around their houses, using the smoke to purify the air and ward off evil. They would also use it to cleanse their clothes, believing that the smoke could penetrate the fabric and drive out any impurities. While these fire-based practices might have made people feel cleaner and more pious, they didn't solve the problem of body odor. So, while you might have smelled like a bonfire, you were probably still a bit on the smelly side. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had a solution for that too, and it involved a whole lot of garlic. So, get ready, because things are about to get a little pungent. Garlic, the stench of sanctity. In a time when body odor was a sign of heresy and bathing was seen as a health risk, people had to get creative with their hygiene practices. And one of the most unusual methods they turned to was garlic. Yes, you heard that right. Garlic. But this wasn't just about warding off vampires. This was about achieving the stench of sanctity. Now, when you think of garlic, you probably think of its strong smell and its ability to ward off vampires. But during the Spanish Inquisition, garlic was seen as a powerful tool in the battle against heresy and body odor. It was believed to have purifying properties, capable of driving out evil spirits and disease. People would rub garlic on their skin, chew on it to freshen their breath, and even hang it around their homes to ward off evil. It was a practice that was as practical as it was spiritual, with the strong smell of garlic seen as a sign of piety and devotion. But you guessed it. This wasn't just any garlic. This was holy garlic, often blessed by a priest and used in religious rituals. Using this garlic was seen as a form of worship, a way to align oneself with the divine and ward off the forces of evil. However, while these garlic-based practices might have made people smell unique, they didn't do much for their personal cleanliness. So, while you might have smelled like a garlic clove, you were probably still covered in a layer of dirt and grime. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had one more trick up its sleeve, and it involved a whole lot of prayer. So get ready, because things are about to get a little holy. Prayer, the spiritual scrub. In a world where body odor was a sign of heresy and cleanliness was next to godliness, prayer became more than just a spiritual practice. It became a form of hygiene, a spiritual scrub that was believed to cleanse the soul and, by extension, the body. But this wasn't just any prayer. This was intense, fervent prayer, often accompanied by fasting and other acts of penance. Now, when you think of prayer, you probably think of quiet, contemplative moments of connection with the divine. But during the Spanish Inquisition, prayer was seen as a powerful tool in the battle against heresy and body odor. It was believed that intense prayer could purify the soul, driving out sin and, with it, the stench of the physical world. People would spend hours in prayer, often in the early hours of the morning or late at night. They would fast, abstaining from food and drink to purify their bodies. They would confess their sins, seeking absolution and purification. It was a practice that was as physically demanding as it was spiritually fulfilling. But this wasn't just any prayer. This was holy prayer, often accompanied by the use of sacred texts and relics. Using these holy items was seen as a way to enhance the power of prayer, drawing the supplicant closer to the divine and further from the stench of heresy. While these prayer-based practices might have made people feel cleaner and more pious, they didn't solve the problem of body odor. So, while you might have felt like a saint, you were probably still a bit on the smelly side. But don't worry, the Spanish Inquisition had one more trick up its sleeve, and it involved a whole lot of fasting. So, get ready, because things are about to get a little hungry. Fasting, the holy hunger. In a world where body odor was a sign of heresy and cleanliness was next to godliness, fasting became more than just a spiritual practice. It became a form of hygiene, a holy hunger that was believed to cleanse the body and the soul. But this wasn't just any fasting. This was intense, prolonged fasting, often lasting for days or even weeks. Now, when you think of fasting, you probably think of abstaining from food for a certain period of time. But during the Spanish Inquisition, fasting was seen as a powerful tool in the battle against heresy and body odor. It was believed that by denying the body physical sustenance, the soul could be purified, driving out sin and, with it, the stench of the physical world. People would fast for days on end, consuming nothing but water and occasionally a little bread. They would pray and meditate, using the hunger as a form of penance, a way to atone for their sins. It was a practice that was as physically demanding as it was spiritually fulfilling. But this wasn't just any fasting. This was holy fasting, often accompanied by prayer and confession. It was seen as a way to enhance the power of prayer, drawing the supplicant closer to the divine and further from the stench of heresy. While these fasting-based practices might have made people feel cleaner and more pious, they didn't solve the problem of body odor. So, while you might have felt like a saint, you were probably still a bit on the smelly side. And there you have it, the peculiar hygiene trends during the Spanish Inquisition. From sanctified soap and heavenly deodorant, to botanical baths and the stench of sanctity, to spiritual scrubs and holy hunger, cleanliness was indeed next to godliness. But remember, while these practices might seem strange to us today, they were a product of their time, a reflection of the fears and beliefs of a society grappling with change. So, The next time you take a shower or brush your teeth, spare a thought for the people of the Spanish Inquisition and be grateful for the simple luxury of soap and water.